All right. Well, I would
Hey,
say we're ready.
yes.
Okay. So there's a thing that's quite common in the world religion, the church world, that well, a couple once saved, always saves is like a cliche, and then how easy it is to be saved. Like you could get saved in 10 seconds. Believe on Jesus Christ and that something and this and that, and you're saved. Romans 10:9, 10:10. You've heard that before, haven't you, Ryan?
Oh yeah. And I have another verse pulled up too. I don't. Are you gonna read that right now or?
You want to play somebody that says this?
No, I got a verse on this topics. Once saved,
Okay.
always too.
Oh, okay.
Also,
Okay, go ahead.
that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable unto his death, if by any means I might attain unto the resurrection of the dead. So so it seems pretty clear with the if statement that Paul's being cautious about his own life and not saying once saved, always saved. It's pretty obvious from reading that if someone reads it and believes it, that Paul's not counting himself as, I'm in, it's done, it's over, and there's nothing left to do. That's exactly what that verse is speaking about. It's a continual process to the end, like
What? Yeah. And
Jesus
what
said.
about and what about die daily? What's the value of that process? Is that process just not really relevant if you're already saved?
Yeah, it has no value if you're just once saved, always saved. There's no dying daily afterwards. That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, or they just think you are dying daily. Now that you're saved, you are dying daily.
Yeah.
Right there on the beach with the margarita, talking some basketball scores. I did a lot of dying today, on the beach with whoever, drinking margaritas and dying. We were dying of the heat, dying of the pleasure. I was dying of drunkenness. Not all the way dead, but I did die a little today daily, as though that has something to do with Christ now, too. And then Paul says, I finished the race. I mean, wasn't he already finished when he was saved?
No, it was like right before his death that he was making this statement,
Right.
that he knew he was trapped and this is where the end was coming. That's when he made that statement, when there was no more time for him to preach and do his work, in prison 3 times, and this last time, you know, he knew
Oh,
it. He knew it was coming.
yeah, he knew he was going to die. It was already scheduled. At least that's, the impression I had. He was like going to die tomorrow. His execution was like tomorrow. And they weren't going to change it as far as he knew or could believe. He'd reached his limit in this life.
Yeah.
He was facing his death and could say with a worthy degree of confidence that he had stood strong and endured the process of salvation, which is that dying daily and renewing the mind. What's that about?
Yeah. Yeah, to renew your mind and keep God in your mind at all times. That's doesn't have much to do with sitting on a beach with whoever and, you know,
Already
dying
saved.
dying from the heat, already saved. That's not having your mind renewed.
Well, let's hear somebody share about how easy it is.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see what he got.
Okay.
It's a wise thing to do to
It's not
get
up.
saved as soon as you can.
Oh, well, we heard it at least.
Okay, I was figuring you were gonna put it up, but
I am, but
okay,
at
okay,
least we got an introduction. We heard what he had to say. Now we'll go do it correctly so we can watch him.
okay.
All right, share screen, Chrome tab, and pick our elder friend here and share him. Okay, there he is, and now ready to hear him speak.
Don't wait to get saved. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, periodically I hear people say, John, I just want to wait to be saved. I'm not ready to give my life to Christ, to do the Christian thing yet. I'm not ready for that. I'm just going to wait a little while to get saved. I hear that periodically, and I'll tell you, that is not a very wise thing to do for a whole bunch of reasons. Let's talk about some of them. One is, first of all, it's really easy to be saved. Romans chapter 10, verse 9.
Oh,
If you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart God raised him out from among the dead, you will be saved. That's pretty easy. Why is salvation so easy? It's so easy because somebody else paid for it. Yeah, you have to work and get something done yourself. It takes real effort. If somebody else just does something and hands it to you, it's pretty easy. Pretty easy to accept a Christmas present. Pretty easy to accept a birthday present. Pretty easy to accept the gift of salvation. Christ paid with it, with his life. So confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus, believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, and you will be saved.
is that it, Ryan?
Yeah, go tell an atheist that or anybody that. Hey, man, I got a gift for you. It's super easy. Yeah, you're just gonna change and be conformed to the image of Christ overnight. You're done, because that's what he's implying is to
He's
be
saying it
saved.
directly.
If we're staying biblical, scriptural, to be saved, like with an ed, is to be like perfect, glorified state. Oh yeah, you could do that in 1 second, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10. Saved, done. You're perfect. You're like Christ. It's all over with.
And what happened to the verse that we read that says, "No one comes to the Father unless the Father draws them." And we
Oh,
might even see that word better translate drag,
yeah,
as if God must drag us through by God's will, the power of God's will, drag us through
right.
our prideful, self righteous, worldly woven, worldly conforming identity, so that that identity may die by the gift of the Spirit of Christ rising in us to overcome the beast that is. Doesn't happen in a day, doesn't let alone 10 seconds.
He to answer your question, he doesn't believe it. I don't care if he says he does. He does not believe that. And you can't believe that you're saved in 3 seconds and actually believe that verse also, that
No.
God drags you in, that it's him doing all the work, that all you can do is like Paul taught is to be a good example, plant seeds, right? The foolishness of preaching, and then God does the rest, and you don't have to really worry about saving somebody from hellfire and, eternal condemnation or whatever. It's that sure takes a lot off of our backs when we can see God doing all the work, and this
And
guy's
it's
saying, you know,
and it's clear he's preaching that we do this work
yeah,
by our own free will choosing. We choose God, yet we read, for example, the guy that replaced Judas, when one apostle asked, who is this new guy? Where'd he come from? And Christ in his resurrected body answers saying, hey, that's none of your business. Our Father chose him to belong with this group. That's where he came from. It's not for you to ask or wonder or comment or just see what we have now. A new guy.
yeah, yeah. What's it to you? Christ said about what my plan is for John, or and we can apply that to anybody's life then. what's it to me, what God
Yeah,
is doing to some.
we don't choose God, let alone choose what we think and believe salvation is by our own will.
The
We just make
natural,
it out to be whatever we want, or some world church doctrine.
how,
Will preach something that's very easy for people to do, and thereby join or gather a new member into themselves.
yeah, and how contradicting is this? It just keeps going in the circle of contradictions. Like Paul says that the carnal natural mind is not even able to have any kind of interest in God, and it's not even able to do so, and nobody's good, not even one, and that dead person's going to go and do what this guy just said and believe in 5 seconds. No, I don't think so. Not even able to do so. That's how dead people are. That's how lost they are. Lost
And
in their own ways and
that's a fact.
delusions.
And what of the verse saying that we renew our mind as part of the process that salvation is, a lifelong process of growing and maturing? And what about those who are still yet carnal, who are babes in Christ, quote unquote, still yet carnal, no different than an unbeliever? And a good case could be made for being worse, because now they've employed, through their own self righteous, prideful, worldly conforming identity, access and leverage to God to be that much more self righteous, still yet carnal, no different than an unbeliever, and very likely worse. As
I
they
wonder.
say, religious people are the most condemning and self righteous people. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Well, yeah, to confirm what you said, I wonder why in Hebrews it says that it's better for those who have come to some kind of knowledge, right, to have some kind of hobby-like interest, and then fall backwards, that it's better for them if they never knew the truth in the first place because of what you just stated, because you wax worse and worse. You saw something that's true and good, never really fully believed it, got close through religion and the carnal ways of religion, and then fell back.
Yeah.
You're worse off now than an atheist, because that's a horrible position to be, terrible position to be in life.
Yeah, leaning on their own church world doctrine, uh, believing in it, any one of the many denominations that profess themselves to represent God, who say now you're saved. You can just lean on that, thereby being stuck in that, leaning on their own understanding of their own church world divided doctrines, exalting it as though we're right, we're more right than all the other 32,000 denominations, and we say you're saved. In fact, you might even like speaking some gibberish and prove that you're saved. How much more will people? What lengths will people go to gather disciples unto themselves, to increase their gathering and their own idea of their own church world success? The more they gather, the more access they have to the resources and benefits of the world. You're building a career. The more people you've got, the more successful you are. And how often did God correct, for example, in the case of David, for counting the number of people in Israel, for example, as a demonstration or proof of God's power? It's not about numbers, but men certainly believe it is.
Is there another spot that we wanted to look at in this
I
clip?
don't know. We'll give him a couple more minutes, and I think we pretty well covered this in a short period of time. Well enough for now. Okay, hold on.
There are a lot of reasons not to wait. There are a lot of reasons to get saved now. One of them is, honestly, it's simply too big a gamble to try to wait until a later date. There's too many things. There isn't a day that goes by hardly that you don't read in the paper. Somebody unexpectedly died in a car wreck. Somebody was unexpectedly shot to death someplace. Somebody accidentally had something fall on them and kill them. You know, it's just too big a gamble, absolutely. Ecclesiastes 8:8 says, no one has power over the day of his death. Let me read it again. No one has power over the day of his death. That's the Bible. You know what that tells me? That tells me you can't say, well, I'm going to wait and get saved later. There may not be a later for you. Are you really sure you want to gamble that? You know, it's too big a risk. You might remember the song by Kenny Rogers, you know, The Gambler. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Now, what does that mean? You know, if you're a gambling person, or if you've seen poker, you know, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. When you hold them is when you stay in the game. Yeah, I think I'll wait around. When you fold them is when the risk gets to be too big. It's too big a risk. You can lose too much, and so you fold. And that way, you get to take your winnings home. Absolutely. And Kenny Rogers is exactly right.
Well, he doesn't appear to be going anywhere, Ryan, after having established the obvious about how simple it is to be saved. Let's just go now and spend the rest of the time on some carnal examples of card games as to why you ought to do it right away and don't wait. You know, back to hurry up and get saved real quick and real easy.
Well, and I've maybe said this a lot, but it's worth saying again. I think is everything about salvation to these people, these religious Christians, is it's like it's done. Okay, now I'm in heaven, and or it's hell. It's all about the afterlife. It's like all there's no something for us right now. Even though they might talk about it or mention it, how to live now, but ultimately salvation is about what he's just saying right here. It's just so out there. And all of Jesus's teachings, what I extract from them and what I've come to understand, it's how to live now, to seek the kingdom now. And then we have that hope in the back of our minds always, like Paul said, to attain the resurrection. But it's putting all of the teachings now, seeking the kingdom now. It's not about I'm in hell or I'm in heaven. And that's all you get from watching something like this.
That's right. It's a lifetime focus, seeking, pursuing the mind and heart of Christ, the kingdom of God, and growing into maturity, growing up, as opposed to still sucking and leaning and drinking the milk of the word, such as Christ and Him crucified simply, as a milk doctrine. It's the
Yeah.
first principles, it's the rudimentary knowledge that leads to a relationship. But if a baby doesn't take past 3 steps and just sits and settles on that, well, it might as well just really physically die. Its life is over. And their relationship with God is over the moment they sat down and were saved in 10 seconds. This group, too, Ryan, they don't believe in they clearly understand that there is no hell. And I've looked at their material, and they've gone to great lengths to prove that the the torture chamber where God tortures people forever with no redeeming value is not even in the Bible, and nor are
Okay.
they Trinitarians. But they have this once saved, always saved, get saved in 10-second idea, along with an annihilist point of view, and that 99.9% or the vast majority of people who've ever lived,
We'll die.
who were born right, will just die. They'll be just
I
done
see.
away with. And,
Oh,
and God's mercy won't go on forever for them, I suppose, even though God repeatedly inspires someone to say and write, my mercy goes on and on and on forever.
right, right. If something God says that it goes on, that uh, God who's never ending, he was, is, and will be. When he says something like, my mercy endures forever or age abiding, as long as there's God, then his mercy endures. We can understand from that context. You don't even need to use the word forever. Where does it say God's mercy does not endure forever? Find me one verse
Sure.
that proves the opposite, like what an annihilationist viewpoint would be, where the wages of sin is death is taken strictly literally, and that's it. You just wages of sin is die. You die physically, and it's over.
Well,
What
people like,
spiritual? Yeah, what spiritual application is that? What Paul was talking about when he said the wages of sin is death? You just die physically. That's what he's talking about.
well,
Only.
he might as well be saying this. And you can see there's another red flag that he needs to promote all his training and knowledge with all the books behind him as though it's a Hollywood set, you know, without saying, putting the obvious in your face. Look how learned I am, how much I know. It's certainly adding a lot of legitimacy to me and who I am as a person. Look at all those books. Red flag, go, beware.
Yeah, just beware, listen, see what someone's saying, but beware.
All right, Ryan. I think that we've spent a decent time with John here, and we'll bid him farewell, and we'll see him in the air someday, regardless of what he thinks or believes. Since our Father did send Christ to save the whole world.
And that there's a resurrection of the just and the unjust. So I suppose he would believe that God resurrects the unjust and then just kills them
Kills them.
after.
Yeah, ends their life. I would think that some people might even opt to be tortured forever. Once I reflected on this, that they might choose that there might be some hope if they could just live, even though God's going to torture them forever with fire on a new flesh that was born and given so they could survive all the pain and suffering by fire, so they could be tortured forever. And it might be better to opt for that, not having experienced it yet, rather than be killed forever. Being killed forever, you can't even imagine any more hope. It might be worse than the threat of an imaginary hell burning fire to torture you.
Yeah, that's a good point, because
Yeah.
people want to live, and they want to hope for something better if it's a bad condition.
Yeah, they might choose this over hell.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Farewell, John Shanghai. And
Yeah.
Ryan, we'll speak soon.
All right.